works. And here we are back again with our XJ camper build. And I'm going to go through a little bit of how we did this rear axle. I know on previous videos we talked about, using a different style axle. And we're going to really get into detail now how I did it, how I put it under there, and why I put it under there. All right, first off, the original rear end, a regular Jeep Cherokee XJ style rear end is about 180 pounds. So has that old carrier underneath, all the front yoke and all that, spinning, going down the road. Didn't want people to pull up behind it to see that, okay? Really didn't like the looks of it, didn't like the extra weight. Now, we went to this rear end here that's basically narrowed it down to 115. So that's a big reduction when we're trying to save weight, trying to make this easy to tow. All right, so what we wound up with is a 97 model caravan, Dodge Caravan style axle, okay? And it might be a little different, a little weird, and I'm not saying this is the way you have to do it. Put any kind of axle you want to under yours, just make sure it's safe, and I think that's what we've done. So as we get under here, what we basically have is this Dodge Caravan axle. Now this thing, if anybody knows anything about a Dodge Caravan, you'll realize, wow, this is upside down. And it is. And it has a zigzag design. The axle goes straight, then it turns, and it goes straight across, and then it turns back, and then it goes across. Originally, it would have been flipped over, and this tube would have been here. Now, we cut out 7.5 inches into the middle of the tube because these ends are tapered. So we just stepped in the middle, cut a 7.5 inches out. We actually did a splice cut. Instead of a regular straight cut, we actually zigzagged it right there and made it cut there and brought it together so it'd still be strong. Another thing we did also, this sway bar here. This sway bar is actually a front two-wheel drive Jeep XJ sway bar. Mounted some extra plates here, welded them in. If you do not know how to cast iron weld, I would suggest that you get somebody who knows how to cast iron weld, because that is cast iron. So we welded these up to it, welded our plates, wound up bolting up our sway bar, and ran it up to this front here. Right over here, we have our carrier right here, our supports right here. Now, Dodge Caravan in them years, they actually utilized regular SEA English style bolts. So I was able to just get off the shelf style bolts. This is the original plate. Then I added to it to wind up giving me this extra support plate here for extra support, but then also for a shock holder. I had to make up this piece here for a shock holder right there to build this up, to make this happen, to make it sandwich this rubber in here like the original Dodge was. I did have to wind up making my own tie bolt. It's a special little made tie bolt. No, I'm not going to go into detail how we did that. Had to have a little machine work done on that. So my shock now, instead of right here where this opening is and it having a shock cross member, I did away with all that, took those pieces and turned around and welded them out here. Now right here I've got a rusty floorboard, so you can kind of see right here we still got to do floorboard work, but we tied in real good right here, right there, and across this backside and here to tie these shocks in really good and firm right there. Now, of course, I got to finish up my floorboard, and when I do that, then, of course, those areas there will be taken care of. Right here is where the original XJ sway bar would have tied in right there. And let's get up and move over here a little bit more. All right here, the original sway bar, the Jeep one, ties in right here. This is the carrier for a sway bar for the front, okay? All I did was straighten these up, tie in my original two-wheel drive style sway bar straight to this plate, filed out the holes on this a little bit, dribble them out a little bit, and turn around and put my bolts right back into the original location to tie in the sway bar. All right, so I put this ID plate up, 1296 Dodge Caravan right there. A lot of times on these on different builds and stuff, as an old school style mechanic, you wind up working on somebody's project and you have no clue of what they've used or whatever. Anything this axle needs now, that plate will reference exactly what it was. So I would highly encourage anybody, if you're doing some sort of swap, make sure you got a good paperwork or some way that you can identify that project. The next man down the road may thank you for it. So, all right, so we got our sway bar tied in with the regular original XJ, front sway bar tied in here where the old original rear end one would have been. So that wound up giving us a good sway bar in case of put any kind of roof rack, anything like that. This thing won't be weaving going down the highway at 80 miles an hour. We even utilized, one thing what we did, we utilized these parking brakes. That was a must to me. I wanted park brakes. I did not want to park somewhere and this thing wind up on a hill and it wind up rolling down the hill. So we're going to start going up towards the front here, and I'm going to show you how I ran these parking brakes right here. Lay down. All right, our parking brakes are original Dodge Caravan. There it is. It runs right there. Made a plate, welded it right here, ran it straight on up to my regular XJ, my original XJ's park handle. Look at that. See that? Now this tube here, or this wire, I'm sorry, right here runs through a tube. That tube right there is actually from the Dodge Caravan. So I was able to salvage it. Right on the other side, it has the same style tube feeding back to the left side's park brake cable. I was able to make me a little cable right here just as an extension. Made me a little end put on there. That's my little end I made to shorten this cable. And that's how it works. These two right here, one of them's left side over there. This is the right side. Whenever I get parked, I pull my brake. And that's how it works. I put it underneath this body right here. My bumper will be right here. It's under there, kind of hidden away, you know, so people won't be walking and hitting it or anything like that, bumping that by accident. So it's going to be hidden up underneath that bumper. Of course, anybody uses it, I understand where it's at, pull it apart, and then you're parked on a hillside and don't have to worry about this thing coming down. The original Jeep, yes, I could have used that, but there are a lot of advantages I've gained by going with this system. First off, weight reduction. That was a big thing. All right, I wound up dropping from 180 pounds to 115. Next thing was just the cosmetic of using a regular, this style floater rear end and all from the rear appearance, look a lot better. Another thing you'll notice as you come from the front all the way to the back, where my battery box is, in previous videos I went into about the battery box, you'll notice anything hits that, it's going straight on out the back, and I have clearance. I have lots of clearance, all right? So that was a benefit right there, just general ground clearance. Next thing you'll notice back here, as you look up, right here, I can utilize a water tank right here in this whole and complete area. So I've got a lot more room for my water tank, because originally I would have had to deal with my chunk or my rear pan for my differential would have been hanging out this far. I would have had to deal with it, and even my shocks being in the way. Well, now they're tucked back on side to side, and my water tank has more clearance in here. So now I just got to get online and start ordering the correct water tank. And then that way I've got all this clearance. I can run a water tank probably a good 14 inches or so and still be underneath the clearance that I have, or above the clearance that I have for my battery box. So that kind of does it for this. If you have any questions or comments or whatever, leave them. Remember to like and subscribe and all. And we appreciate you coming to After Hours Auto Works.